On the 18th of May, Tovey issued signals for cruiser patrols to be stepped up. One of those to whom Tovey directed a signal was Rear Admiral Frederick Wake Walker, the admiral commanding the 1st Cruiser Squadron, which was comprised of the heavy cruisers Norfolk and Suffolk, which were tasked with patrolling the Denmark Strait. Tovey wanted to ensure that if the Bismarck sortied and was to attempt to break out into the North Atlantic, that both Norfolk and Suffolk would be at sea at the same time. During the Arctic summer, the Denmark Strait is 180 miles wide at its narrowest point. During the long winter months, ice closes the strait to a passage approximately 60 miles wide. Recognizing the Denmark Strait as a route to be taken to the Atlantic by German surface raiders, British forces sought to narrow the strait still further by sowing minefields. On the western side of the strait, the cold Greenland current carries icebergs into the North Atlantic. Fog is a regular occurrence in the passage, owing to warm water meeting cold and as a result of ice drifting south from the Arctic. During the summer months, owing to the latitude, the Denmark Strait experiences almost perpetual daylight. During the winter months, almost continuous darkness. The perishing cold combined with the fog and darkness added to the mind-numbing experience of weeks on patrol that Royal Navy sailors were subjected to. Despite the bleakness, the Denmark Strait could be a place of beauty. When the weather cleared, the towering glaciers of Greenland could be seen shimmering on the horizon, and the fluorescent dancing ribbons of light of the Aurora Borealis, the famed Northern Lights, graced the sky. Meanwhile, at Scapa Flow, Tovey was in his cabin aboard HMS King George V, reviewing meteorological reports with his morning tea. As he read the reports, he received a copy of the signal from Denham, reporting the presence of German ships in the Kattegat. Having read the signal, Tovey phoned the Admiralty and spoke to the Director of Naval Intelligence, Admiral Sir John Godfrey, as well as to Admiral Sir Tom Phillips, the Vice Chief of the Naval Staff. One thing was, however, puzzling to everyone at the Admiralty, as well as to Tovey. If the intelligence from Stockholm was accurate, what connection did the escort vessels and, more importantly, the merchant ships have to the two large warships? Especially if they were to break out into the Atlantic. Tovey knew that the German commerce raiders would have had their supply vessels and tankers already positioned at sea. What the Germans intended with two large warships, escort vessels, as well as merchant ships was anyone's guess. Following receipt of the news that two large German warships had been sighted sailing north, the two serviceable photo reconnaissance Spitfires at RAF Wick were made ready, and two experienced pilots, Flying Officer Greenhill and Pilot Officer Michael Suckling, were chosen to fly them. Greenhill would concentrate on southern Norway, covering the coastline around Kristiansand and Oslo, as it seemed likely that the two ships would put in there. Suckling, meanwhile, would concentrate on the area around Bergen. Shortly after 11 a.m., Suckling's Spitfire lifted off from Wick and headed out across the North Sea. Making his first landfall to the south of Sognefjord, he turned to port and flew over Stavanger. As he flew south towards Bergen, he switched on his cameras. Around 1:15 p.m., as he flew south of Vindnes, Suckling sighted and photographed a cluster of ships including a cruiser, a destroyer, and 4 smaller vessels moored in Calvin's Bay. The flight path took Suckling over Bergen, where he photographed shipping in the port and in its approaches, recording the presence of merchant vessels and destroyers. Seconds later, he winged over Grimstad Fjord, where, at the eastern end, he saw what he took to be another cruiser and its escorts. Photographing these ships also, Suckling set a course back for Wick. As Tovey waited for the reconnaissance reports, an army of small boats and launches that tended to the moored warships of the home fleet went about their business, while gulls cried overhead. To the men of the home fleet, it was just another boring day spent in the brisk air of the home fleet's bleak anchorage. Aboard King George V, Tovey and his staff were developing theories on the most likely courses of action that the enemy warships would take, and how the home fleet ought to be deployed to combat the threat. During the afternoon of the 21st of May, Captain John Leach and his gunnery officer, Lieutenant Commander Colin McMullen, were fishing on Orkney when they were recalled back to HMS Prince of Wales, the Royal Navy's newest battleship, so that Captain Leach could attend a meeting with Tovey. HMS Prince of Wales was the second battleship of the King George V class. Laid down at the Camel Lead shipyard in Birkenhead, the hull took just over 2 years to complete and was launched on the 4th of May 1939. Since the day of her launching, Prince of Wales had gained a reputation for being a bad luck ship. On the day of her launching, a dockyard worker had been killed on the slipway. Whilst undergoing fitting out work in Liverpool, she had been damaged by a Luftwaffe bomb that exploded between the hull and the wall of the fitting out basin. When attempts were made to move the ship to Rosyth to complete the fitting out work, the ship had run aground. Then, at Rosyth, a dockyard worker had been injured when an anti-aircraft round was accidentally discharged. Nor was that all, for, on 3 occasions, small fires broke out in the shell room of B turret. Prince of Wales was commissioned in March 1941, whereupon she commenced to work up. The working up of the ship revealed a number of defects with the ship's 14-inch guns, which required time to be rectified. Prince of Wales, however, did not have the luxury of time. Reporting to Tovey, when questioned, Leach reported that Prince of Wales was operational. When he declared Prince of Wales to be operational, Leach did so in the full knowledge of the teething troubles that existed with the 14-inch main armament, and with the knowledge that a significant proportion of the ship's company had not yet received sufficient training, while the ship and the crew as a unit required time still to work up. Such were the teething troubles with the 14-inch guns of the Prince of Wales that civilian contractors from Vickers Armstrong were still on board attempting to rectify the issues. In the meantime, Suckling had returned to Wick, bringing with him photographic confirmation that the Bismarck was in Norway. The news was passed to Tovey, who now made key decisions. He recognised that the greatest danger posed to the British war effort by the Bismarck was to the convoy lanes. The Admiralty was also keenly aware of this and placed the battle cruiser HMS Repulse, then on the Clyde, preparing to escort a convoy to the Indian Ocean, at Tovey's disposal, along with the new aircraft carrier Victorious. Constructed at Vickers Armstrong in Newcastle upon Tyne, Victorious had been commissioned in March 1941 and had sailed from Tyneside to Rosyth to undergo final outfitting, which was completed on the 16th of May. Whilst at Rosyth, on the 11th of May, 6 Fairey Fulmar fighters of 800 Squadron were embarked. The ship was scheduled to provide cover for convoy WS-8B alongside the Repulse. As part of this deployment, Victorious was to carry 48 crated Hawker Hurricane fighters to be landed at Gibraltar. Victorious had arrived at the home fleet anchorage the day previous to complete sea trials. With Repulse placed under his command, Tovey had 4 heavy ships at his disposal: the battleships King George V and Prince of Wales, and the battlecruisers Repulse and Hood. HMS Hood was the only ship of her class of battlecruisers, and was the last battlecruiser constructed for the Royal Navy. Laid down on the 1st of September 1916 at the John Brown & Co. shipyard at Clydebank, when commissioned in 1920, with an overall length of 860 feet 7 inches, she was the largest ship in the world. Armed with 8 15-inch guns in 4 twin turrets and displacing 47,430 tons, during sea trials she attained a speed of 32.06 knots, which gave her the distinction of not only being the largest ship in the world, but also the fastest. Unmatched in her beauty and affectionately referred to as the Mighty Hood, during the interwar period she was dispatched on numerous showing the flag exercises as the embodiment of British naval power. Serving as the flagship of the Royal Navy's battlecruiser squadron under the command of Vice Admiral Lancelot Holland, Hood was in many ways the embodiment of the big gun era of sea power and the epitome of British sea power. It was subsequently decided that Holland should put to sea with Hood and Prince of Wales and sail to Iceland, where they would be in position to intercept Bismarck if she tried to break out to the Atlantic by either the Denmark Strait or the Iceland-Faroes Gap. Tovey, meanwhile, resolved to remain at anchor with King George V, victorious and repulse, until confirmation had been received that Bismarck had sailed. As the home fleet began to prepare for sea, Bismarck and Prince Eugen departed Norway and began to make for the Denmark Strait. Shortly after midnight, Hood and Prince of Wales, with an escort of destroyers, departed Scapa Flow.
Many thanks for watching. Please subscribe for more updates, like and share. You can also help to support the channel at Patreon. Details are in the description box below.